be, he said dryly. Were you ready to talk business about the fund? Ben shrugged. I'm sorry, may have been wasting your time. Oren looked back coolly. No law against it. He looked over at the mess on the floor. You know, Ben, stuff keeps happening when you're here. I hate that you keep it really easy. Yes, I should be about my business, Ben said mildly. He bowed and turned away. Oren walked back toward his office, the exultant customers following. Annalena goggled. Did Oren just tell one of my friends to leave? Suddenly indignant, she stomped after Oren, intending to ask exactly that. If it had been a dismissal, it was the lightest, politest she'd ever heard. But no one but she had the right to tell anyone in her store what to do. Just as she reached the back of the crowd, however, something told her to look back. Ben was gone. A breathless Callie met her just outside the door to the livery. Did Ben leave? She asked anxiously. Rue's gone. Yeah. Sighing, Annalena looked back into the store.
All right.
The water kept going.
Got it out on the road at least.
Where do you think he's from, Mom? I don't know. But wherever it is, I sure don't understand the concept of shopping. Meditation. Enough. Just 3 visits and chaos. I shouldn't have gone. I'm endangering the mission. I won't go back there again. And needless to say, I'll be doing these chats mentally from now on. I expect you understand why. Part 3. The Bright Center. Chapter 25. Sand people live with sores every day. At birth, every Tuscan infant was swaddled tightly in bandages. The nurses worked so fast, a Yak had never seen the children's faces. Channeled through little mouthpieces, her son's cries had been teeny and agonized. Babies had no way of appreciating the curse that existence represented, nor did they appreciate the shame of exposed flesh. The carbuncle, it calls, became a reminder of the past. A funnel plant simply grew new skin over its wounds. A Tuscan could do the same. A Yak understood that defeat was just another sore sand people lived with. Defeat had to be felt, each and every one, and remembered. And in the days since the massacre at the gorge, a Yak had felt it every time she opened her eye. The survivors in the pillars were pathetic, clinging to life like lightning. The first few days had been the worst, with the remaining handful of warriors making pitiful forays to find herbivores. Proud raids indeed. The arguments followed. Those posed less danger to a Yak now, since most of her rivals were dead. But hapless elders walking in circles, decrying their fates, irritated her greatly. And finally, the sacred well in the pillars, usually reliable, was dry most days now. The clan's need hadn't been reduced much by the massacre. A herd of ownerless Vanthas remained, and it made no sense to butcher them, whatever tradition said. The warriors had blamed the Yak and the failed raid for the water problems too, despite the fact that word was filtering in of similar issues for other clans elsewhere. The fastest route. Rather, he kept to the ridgeline, avoiding contact with settlements. Unable to range far without leaving her defenseless clan behind, the Yak had lost him. So instead, she sat with her Vantha and waited, and watched. Ben returned the next day to his home. His only cargo was the camping gear he'd taken with him. Whatever his trip east had been, he had no way of appreciating the curse that existence represented. Nor did they appreciate the shame of exposed flesh. But they quickly became acquainted with the price the coverings exacted on the body. Numberless in a lifetime, sores simply had to be endured. Kishik had been slow to learn that years earlier. The human abductee had thought her rapid. She was wrong. Sand people added to their birth rap as they grew. Each new patch a testament to the defiance and survival. If a pebble got into the wrappings, it was simply layered over. The carbuncle, it calls, became a reminder of the past. A funnel plant simply grew new skin over its wounds. A Tuscan could do the same. A Yak understood that defeat was indeed. The arguments followed. Those posed less danger to a Yak now, since most of her rivals were dead. But hapless elders walking in circles, decrying their fates, irritated her greatly. And finally, The sacred well in the pillars, usually reliable, was dry most days now. The clan's need hadn't been reduced much by the massacre. A herd of ownerless banthas remained, and it made no sense to butcher them, whatever tradition said. The warriors had blamed the Yark and the failed raid for the water problems too, despite the fact that word was filtering in of similar issues for other clans elsewhere. If Tatooine had grown angry with its tenants, all Sand people were suffering, not just one tribe. A Yark had no time for recriminations, for while keeping the group from dissolving had taken most of her time, she had still found spare hours for the important thing, keeping watch on Ben. The human's lair was close, farther to the west, along the northern face of the Junland. The Yark had found it easily. The winds had been light, and while Ben had shown guile in his attempts to hide his footsteps, no one could track like a Tusken. Ben had not returned to the oasis in many days. The Yark had wondered about that. Didn't he protect the human woman, Annaline? The compound was waiting and watched. Ben returned the next day to his home. His only cargo was the camping gear he'd taken with him. Whatever his trip east had been, it wasn't a supply run. What drove a human? A Yark wished she had spent more time listening. The thing will fit in the cave beneath the overhang. Carry it up there, and try not to break it. The young warriors looked at one another, puzzled at the reversal. A Yark's next yell put them into motion. A Yark watched it go past and calculated. She wasn't sure what they would do with it, if anything. But circumstances were dire, and even an object that had no meaning to Tuskens might become important in the clash against the settlers. It only took a pebble to cause a sword. Chapter 26. Vika said. She wiped her hands on her work pants. Dad, we've got to do something else. What? Orin didn't know. It wasn't normal, this performance. It went against everything he knew about the art and the science. Nothing in the atmosphere had changed. Everything was well within expected parameters. Yet each of his 10,000 credit machines was turning out pedestrian water, half a glass at a time. Some farmers simply lost the imbecile. You're leaving early, Wow. Orin stepped to the door. Finally tell everyone how you saved the claim from the raging horde? That's not it, Ulbrich said. Got a call. Some blasted Sandies stole one of my new towers before we even put it up. Ulbrich launched into a rant about Tuskens, Jawas, and incompetence everywhere. Orin didn't try to hide his own amusement as he waited for applause. Sorry to hear that. He finally interjected. Anyone hurt? Just my pocket. He recounted Ben's questions about extending protection far to the east. Out near Anchorhead? Vika asked, climbing down the ladder. What business has he got out there? No idea. Orin strained to remember details from the conversation. Ben had mentioned the Lars farm. Why would he care what happens out that way? Vika chucked her toolkit into the back of their work vehicle. You really think he has money?
Look at those clouds.
He wasn't just talking.
Fantastic.
I thought you said he was an idiot. That I did, Orin said, staring at the Juneblood peaks far away. Man lives on the fringe, babbling to himself and dressing like a Tusken stole his wardrobe. That's the sort of human driftwood your mother would take in. And we would, he did not have to say. But crazy people need protecting too. Some even have money. Probably not this crazy person, though. Orin knew it wasn't worth wasting
I
thoughts on
flop.
that. Ben hadn't been around in days, and there were bigger problems coming up. He took a last forlorn look at the vaporator. Let's pack it in. We're not going to fix this by the deadline. Mullen was startled. No harvest. But those people who came to see you shouldn't have been allowed anywhere near the claim, Orin said, aggravated. It had been a sore point in the family. Somebody on the work crews should have stopped Master Boopa before he reached the claim, or at least alerted Orin. Vika stood beside her brother. She looked serious for once. What would he said, flashing a reassuring smile as he climbed into his vehicle. I've got some things to prepare. Chapter 27. Lily nearly dropped her packages when she opened the door. Annalene! In the middle of the plane's dining area, structure quaking. I've been calling for Jade, but I think he's in the stockroom. Asleep, you mean? Lily pushed a table away to reach the scaffold. She steadied it long enough for Annalene to twist around and reach for one of the vertical supports. Carefully, Annalene climbed down. Ah, thanks, she said, breathing deeply. I was afraid I'd have to wait for the dinner rush. Lily looked around. The afternoon crowd was always thinnest during harvest time. The store was empty, except for old Herbally Napty, poking through a basket of remnants. Didn't Herbally offer to help? No, but she asked me to help her, Annalene said, drying her hands on her overalls. I'm pleased to say I know what's in inventory, even in midair. She turned the fallen bucket upright and searched for the mop, as if nothing had ever happened. Lily marveled. You decided to wash the ceiling alone. Putting up sealant, actually, Annalene said. You guys did a good job cleaning up after the raid, but I wanted to get at those blaster score marks on the pour stone before they caused cracks. What, in 30? I have the time now. She started mopping. Mystified, Lily walked back to reclaim her packages. Good thing I came. Though if you'd kept that activator on you, you could have set off the settlers' fall. That would have gone over well with everyone in the fields for sure, Annalene said. I can see the hollow now. Woman summons militia to save her from her own stupidity. Giving the floor up for later, Annalene walked behind the counter. She looked in wonderment at the stack of packages Lily had brought to ship. Lily was a talented sculptor in her spare time, specializing in primitive designs. She had customers on worlds all over the Outer Rim. How do you find these people? Annalene asked. Ex-boyfriends, the Zeltron said, smiling primly. She ran a crimson finger down a digital list of names on the manifest she was holding. They're all still fans. Of your work, or you? An artist tries not to ask, Lily said, to return and resume his calf intake. If the facts of her life hadn't changed in recent days, she'd made sure it felt like a whirl all the same. I know what's wrong, Lily said. My latest masterpiece, a shipping label for something called the Kenobi system. Annalene looked at the letters she'd absent-mindedly printed and blushed. Oops. It's okay, Lily said, gesturing to the mislabeled package. It is a fertility statue. That's all I need, Annalene laughed. She shook her head and corrected the label. Okay, I admit it. It bothers me that he never came back. She'd almost lost track of how long it had been since the Tuscan attack, and the crazy, surreal day after. The visit by Master Bupa, the strange change in Oren's behavior toward her, and Ben's vanishing act upon becoming the center of attention. He hadn't returned since. I guess we scared him off, she said.
Zombies ahead.
Sometimes. They didn't know the locals gossiped about every new arrival, just to forget about them when someone else came along. Only 2 people had even mentioned then to Annalene recently. Oren asked occasionally whether he'd returned, and Callie asked the same thing, only every 5 minutes. Oren appeared in the hallway from the garage. Annalene saw him give a moment's glance to the scaffold before disappearing into his office without a word. That's another weird one, she whispered to Lily. Oren's best behavior around Annalene had been a thing of wonder lately. It was the new story captivating the regulars' attention. You want to talk to someone? Talk to him. Lily snorted and made a pronouncement. Annie, my friend, Ben is exactly what you need. How do you mean? Because you've kept Oren at arm's length for years, Lily said. And he got used to it. But now that there's another suitor for Princess Annie, he's got to make his move. Annalene cast a horrified glance at the office door. I don't want him to make his move. Is that so? Then Danar's friend, and that was how she still saw him. Why did he want that to change now? She started to say something when Lily shushed her. Oren emerged from the office, having changed his shirt and neatened his hair after his day in the fields. He saw the women and smiled. How are my favorite people today?
Yeah.
One of us was nearly burying the other, nicely, and I've convinced him to spend tomorrow here, watching the store. Why can't Jade? Rena, where will I be? Moss Isley. You deserve a day in the city, he said. And I want you to take the whole... In the past, it's had more of an effect on me. I don't know what it means. I'm worried the dream represents the smothering fight in the galaxy, and my own misgivings about being far from the sea. Could I really stay here so long that I no longer feel the cries of those Palpatine hearts? Don't worry, Qui-Gon, I'm not speaking this out loud. I'm still ashamed of what you must think of that horrendous blunder when I was overheard. You must think I'm a Padawan all over again. But I know how it happened.
Uh-oh.
I've been focusing too hard on trying to contact you, trying to replicate the feelings I was having that time you spoke to Yoda and me. I was trying to separate myself mentally from my surroundings, and because of that, I didn't sense